Hello and welcome. My name is Ian Corley and I'm the Global Product Manager for the Business English Qualifications, otherwise known as BEC, that are produced by Cambridge Assessment English. In today's presentation, I'm going to give you an overview of the BEC exams and also give you some important hints and tips, as well as reference to lots of resources that you can use to help you to prepare for these qualifications. So let's start by thinking about what these qualifications actually are. So the business qualifications prove the ability to communicate with confidence in English at work. The qualifications are available at 3 levels: preliminary, Vantage and higher. I'll explain how those 3 levels work in a little bit of detail later. This is an in-depth assessment testing all 4 language skills, so reading, writing, listening and speaking, as well as grammar and vocabulary. And in the speaking test, there is a face-to-face speaking test which gives a more realistic communicative practice of how you will be talking in English in the workplace. And it's really important to mention that we use real work-related communicative tasks and activities throughout all the exams, which really help you to prepare for the world of work and to prove your confidence in using the English language. So let's look a little bit more about the CEFR. I mentioned that the BEC qualifications are at 3 levels. So we've got BEC Preliminary, which you can see here is at B1, BEC Vantage, which is at B2 level, and BEC Higher, which is at C1 level. The CFR sets standards of English across 6 levels, as you can see, from A1, A2, basic user, B1 and B2, independent user, and C1, C2, proficient user, as well as a 7th level, which is pre-A1 right at the bottom, which is used to show students who have very little English. The CEFR is an international standard used across all Cambridge English qualifications, and the Cambridge English scale, which you can also see here next to the CFR, breaks down each of those CFR levels into 20 points. And this allows us to report in a granular detail exactly where students' language ability is within each of those CFR levels. And linked to those CFR levels are a number of can-do statements which show what students are able to use with the English that they have. Let's have a look at those in a bit more detail now. Here are some examples of can-do statements taken from the Vantage exam. And you can see that they're split up by reading and writing, listening and speaking. And they show you what candidates are able to do with the language that they've learnt. So for example, you can see under reading and writing, it says that they can write a report of a factual nature. They can write non-routine letters and emails. They can take and pass on messages which are part of a normal working day. They can express their opinion and present arguments as well. There are lots more of these can-do statements and they're all available on our website. So, what business skills will you learn about when you study for BEC? It's important that these qualifications will teach you not only the English language, but some really important skills that you can use when you're at work. For example, how to socialise and network with colleagues, how to attend and present at meetings, how to write reports, telephone skills, problem-solving skills, how to negotiate, and decision-making. So these are all really practical workplace skills that you will learn as you prepare for the BEC exam, and you'll learn how to do all of these skills in the English language. So why should you study for one of these business qualifications? Well, first of all, it'll help you to build your English communication skills by studying for BEC. You'll not only become more confident about your English, but you'll learn about a range of skills that I've just shown you that you'll be able to use in your professional life. Also, you'll be able to enhance your CV and stand out from the crowd by adding a BEC qualification to it. Employers will be looking for job candidates who can offer them more than the rest, and BEC helps to show that you can do just that. These BEC qualifications will also prove that you've got what it takes. Passing BEC shows that you've got drive and determination, and that's just what employers are looking for. The qualifications are accepted globally by multinational corporations who trust Cambridge English, and you can check our recognition pages to find out exactly who recognises our exams. You'll get detailed and practical reporting that shows exactly what you can do with the English that you've studied for, and we'll look at the reporting in more detail later. And there are also lots of free resources available to help you to get ready to take the exam. Let's look briefly at the structure of the exam. So, we've already mentioned that there are 3 exams: preliminary, Vantage and higher. And each of those exams has reading, writing, listening and speaking papers, as well as grammar and vocabulary. You can see that for the preliminary exam, the reading and the writing exams are actually together in one exam that takes about an hour and a half. But for the Vantage and the higher exams, we've split those into 2 separate papers. And that's really because these exams are at a higher level, and therefore more time needs to be taken on the reading and writing papers in order to pass these exams. You can see that for the listening exam, it's about 40 minutes for each of the 3 exams. And here, students will listen to a range of different types of listening activities and a range of different types of accents, not just British accents, as part of that exam. And we'll talk about that a bit more later. And in the speaking exam that I mentioned, there are 3 parts to the exam, and you will be talking directly to an examiner called an interlocutor who will be asking you questions within the exam room. There'll also be another examiner who's present in the room checking how you perform and marking you. There are some great examples of the speaking test available on our YouTube channel, so please do check that out by searching for Cambridge Assessment English and BEC on YouTube. So, let's look at each of the exams in more detail. So as we said, for the reading exam, for the preliminary, it forms part of a test including reading and writing. But then for Vantage and higher, these are separate 1-hour exams. In the exam, there'll be a mixture of short and long texts. You'll be expected to read for gist, which means a general understanding of the articles, as well as reading for specific information. And there are lots of different question types, such as matching statements, the parts of text, multiple choice questions, and gap fill activities. You can see that I've put some links here at the bottom of the page where you can find exactly what these different reading exams are like, and you can practice the exams using sample papers. Here is an example of what the reading paper looks like, and you can see that on the left hand side of the screen you have the text that you need to read. On the right hand side of the screen you have the questions that you have to answer. All these questions are in chronological order, so as you read through the text you will meet these questions that you need to answer. So I'd also like to give you some tips for the reading test. So it's important that you do familiarise yourself with all the question types in the exam and practice them using the sample papers that I've just described to you. It's also important that during the exam you read all the instructions carefully so that you're sure what you have to do and you can be sure that you answer the questions correctly. You also need to do lots of general reading practice in class and at home to help you to prepare. You can't read enough really, And general reading could be news articles on the internet, or it could be reading a newspaper, or it even could be reading novels or biographies. Just immerse yourself in the English language and read as much and as wide a variety of reading text as you can. You should try to work out the meaning of unknown words by the context in which they are used, and then you can check them with a dictionary at home. You won't have a dictionary that you can use in the exam, but you can learn the skills of how to work out the meaning of unknown words before you go into the exam room. Do time yourself as you practice the exams. Can you complete the exam in the given time frame? And which parts of the exam took you the longest? This will help you to structure your work during the live exam. And it's important that you don't linger on questions that you don't know, but you leave them and come back to them later, because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you've spent a long time over one or two questions that you found particularly difficult and then didn't leave yourself enough time to complete the exam. Also, you shouldn't rely on word spotting. Just because the same word appears in the text and in the question, you shouldn't assume that that's automatically the right answer. And really, lots of these skills that I've explained for reading are also valid for the other papers in the exam that you'll be studying for. So let's have a look at the writing exam. So again, I mentioned that writing forms part of the same paper as reading for the preliminary exam. For Vantage, it's about 45 minutes and there are 2 tasks for you to complete. And for the higher, there are 2 tasks again, but the exam is longer at 1 hour and 10 minutes. In part 1, you will be asked to complete a shorter task, producing an internal communication for a business, such as an email or a very short report. That really depends on the level of the exam. And in part 2, it's a longer task, such as writing a longer letter or report. And again, the type of task depends on which exam paper you'll be taking. And again, please have a look at the link at the bottom of the page here, where you can try our sample papers, and also a fantastic resource that we have called Write and Improve, which uses artificial intelligence to allow you to try a range of different writing activities and then show how you've progressed through those activities by pointing out any grammar, vocabulary, structural mistakes that you make. So please do have a look at that resource. It's really, really useful. So on screen here, you can see an example of the Vantage writing test. So we mentioned that there are 2 parts to the writing test. The first part is shorter. You'll be expected to write between 40 and 50 words. And the second part is longer. You'll be expected to write about 120 to 140 words. The first task, you'll be given a prompt and you'll normally be asked to write an email. And you'll be given points that you need to cover as part of that email that you write. In the second, the longer task, you're more than likely going to be asked to write a report, and you will be given some visual prompts, as you can see here with the graph and the text underneath it. So let's have a look at some of the tips for the writing test. So it's important to know that what you will be assessed on. So there are 4 elements here. Content. This is really checking that your writing is relevant to the task. So have you answered the question that has been given to you? Communicative achievement. Are you able to get your message across in an engaging and easily understood way? Organisation. Is your answer well structured? Are you able to link your ideas together? Have you used paragraphs? Have you used proper sentence construction? And finally, you'll be assessed on your language. Are you using a range of grammatical structures correctly? And are you using a range of vocabulary? So, in order to prepare for the writing test, do familiarise yourself with the types of questions being asked and practice them. using the sample questions that I've mentioned. Do make sure you plan your answers first, and then make sure that you complete the task fully. It's much easier to write if you spend a few moments just thinking about exactly what you're going to say and the order in which you're going to say it. Try to use a range of vocabulary and grammar, and be brave. The examiner will be looking for examples of how you've really tried to use what you've learnt in the English language. And also, it's better to try something complex and to make an error than to just write in very, very simple language. Do make sure that you have enough time to complete both tasks, and don't prepare your answers in advance, because you don't know what the questions are going to be when you enter the exam room, and if they are not the same as the piece that you've prepared in advance, you're not going to get very good marks. And don't worry if you write a little bit more than the word limit. It's always better to write a little bit more than a little bit less. Okay, let's move on now to the listening exam. So in each of the three exams here, preliminary, Vantage and higher, you can see that the listening test is about 40 minutes long. And depending on the exam, there are either 3 or 4 parts, but there's always going to be 30 questions here. So let's have a look at the types of activities you will be doing as part of the listening exam. You will need to listen to a mix of monologues, which would be one person presenting, for example, or speakers interacting. So it might be a number of speakers who are all talking together in a meeting room, for example. There will be a range of accents as part of the listening test, as I mentioned, including both British and US accents, as well as many others. There are lots of different question types as well, such as note-taking, listening for specific information, listening to identify what the speakers are talking about, matching activities and multiple choice questions. A whole range of activities, and you can again practice using the sample papers on our website. This is an example of what a sample listening test looks like. And you can see here that you're going to have to listen to 5 different speakers, and you have to decide which of the problems mentioned relates to which of the speakers. So, let's have a look at some tips for the listening test. Again, do familiarise yourself with the types of questions being asked and practice them. Do work out which ones you find the most challenging and make sure that you're familiar with how they work. Do use the preparation time given before each recording during the exam to read through the questions and to think about the context, so that when the listening starts, you're in a good position to understand exactly what you need to do. In the listening test, you have to transfer all your answers from the listening booklet onto the answer sheet. It's really important that you know how to do this effectively, because the last thing that you want to do is to answer questions correctly, but then fail because you haven't transferred them onto the answer sheet correctly. Try as many different listening activities as you can. These don't have to be from the BEC exam, although there are lots of activities available. You can try listening exams from all our different qualifications, and you can also listen to as much English as possible using things like the radio and the BBC, fantastic resources. Just like reading, you should try and listening to immerse yourself in the language as much as possible. And finally, there is the speaking test. We mentioned that there are 3 parts to the speaking test. You can see that the exams are a little bit longer as the exams get more difficult. There will be 2 or 3 students at a time talking to an examiner, also called an interlocuteur. And there will also be another examiner in the room who doesn't speak, but who will be listening to you and marking you. In the first part, there will be a conversation between yourself and the examiner. In the second part, you'll be asked to give a mini presentation, and the topics of that presentation will be given to you as part of the exam. In the third part, there's a collaborative task where you need to work with the other student in the room to answer the questions. As I mentioned, there are some great examples of speaking tests on our YouTube channel, and you can see some of the links below. So, tips for the speaking test. Just like writing, there are 4 different elements that you will be assessed on. Grammar and vocabulary, and you really should make the most of what you know. Just like in the writing exam, you will get more marks for trying to use complex grammatical structures and complex vocabulary as opposed to just speaking using very, very simple terms. You'll be marked on discourse management. So how are you able to provide information? How are you able to speak to the other candidates in the room? Pronunciation. You have to make sure that you are clearly understood when you speak. And interaction. Can you keep the conversation flowing? So, do listen carefully to all instructions to make sure that what you are saying is relevant. It's really important that you answer the questions fully. Do be brave. As I mentioned, it's better to try something difficult and make a mistake than to play it safe. Do familiarise yourself with the structure of the exam before, and do practice speaking in English as much as possible with your friends, with your colleagues at college and university, and of course with your teachers as well. The more you practice speaking, the more familiar and the easier you will find it. During the speaking test, don't try to dominate your partner or to interrupt them. Let them speak. And don't prepare long answers in advance or learn or practice speeches in advance, because you don't know what the questions are going to be before you go into the exam room. So it's better not to try and prepare something that you might not even be able to use. Okay, so in addition to those hints and tips that I've given you, there's a wide range of free resources that are available on our website. I've mentioned the sample papers, and you really should try all of those for the business qualifications, but you can also try our general English sample papers as well. They will also be of great use to you. There's a vocabulary builder on there which helps you to improve your business English vocabulary. I've mentioned Write and Improve, which is a great resource using artificial intelligence that allows you to practice your writing and shows you where your mistakes are and gives you the opportunity to try again and shows how you improve as you work through the writing activities. And there's also a great BEC app available which gives you lots of hints and tips about the exam. Lots of the resources that are available that I've mentioned are on our website, but here's some more information about how you can download the BEC app as well, which is a great resource that you can carry around with you and gives lots of practice, hints, tips, etc. about the exam. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the results that you will receive. So, first of all, you will receive a statement of results, and this will be available within 2 weeks if you've taken the computer-based version of the exam, or 4 weeks if you've taken the paper-based version of the exam. And then, if you've passed the exam, you will also receive a certificate. So let's look first of all at the statement of results. And on the right-hand side of the screen, here's an example of what a statement of results looks like. So you'll get information on your overall score, you'll get information on your score by each skill. That has a CEFR level, and also the Cambridge English scale to show where exactly you are within each of those CEFR levels. There's also a lot more information provided on this test report form describing exactly how your performance can be interpreted. In addition to that statement of results, you also get a test certificate which is embossed in silver and has the university crest prominently displayed. And this is something that you can share with employers as proof of your skills in English. So, our business qualifications are recognised all over the world by more than 4,000 institutions. These include leading employers such as Wipro and TCS, educational authorities and higher educational institutions. And the number of institutions and employers who are recognised in their exams grow every year. So, how can candidates register for the business qualifications? Well, it's really easy to do. The best thing is for you to contact your local examination centre, and through them you will find out how much the exam costs, the exam dates that are available and the registration process. In order to find your local examination centre, you can go to our website. You can see the web address here, and then you can locate the exam centre most close to you, and then you can contact them directly. I mentioned that the exams can be taken throughout the year, and you can see here that we have sessions available for both the paper-based and the computer-based exam. I should mention at this point that there is no difference in the content of the exams. They're exactly the same, and they're exactly the same length, regardless of whether you do paper-based or computer-based. It's simply that some students and some institutions prefer paper-based exams, some prefer to take exams on a computer, and so we've made both options available to you. You can find lots of information about the Cambridge English Qualifications, the business qualifications, through all of these different means. And also at the bottom, something that you might find useful is something called Test Your English, which is a really quick and free placement test which tells you what level of English you've got and which of the BEC qualifications would be the best one for you to study for. So thank you very much for listening to the presentation today. I hope that you found it useful. In conclusion, I would just like to say that you should really try to visit our website and to look at all the great resources that are available there, highlights of which are Write and Improve, as I mentioned, which uses great artificial intelligence to aid you in developing your writing skills, and also the sample papers that are there for you as well. Feel free to contact us using the information provided on this slide, but also be aware that we do have a network of local offices, and you can find out the details of the office closest to you through our website again. So, thank you once more, and good luck with preparing for your BEC qualifications.